everybody. Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we're the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
We are the
Classic Gaming Brothers. You know what I was thinking about while we were turning on our mics and getting everything ready?
Yeah.
And however we do this in our imaginary studio. I guess our real studio. But
yes, yeah. It's not imaginary. There are real walls here.
About different podcasts and how they sometimes, you're listening to podcasts and people are already talking and it's just like you're just tuning into their conversation.
Yeah.
I just like that. I didn't. Maybe
should we do that now? Should we start everything off like we're like, oh, hey, what's up?
Hey.
Nice to see you here. Welcome to this episode. We've been talking for hours.
We've been talking for hours. I don't know if I could tolerate you for that long.
Anyway, well, we're not a normal podcast, I would say.
I would say we're a pretty standard podcast. We're just a couple of abnormal guys.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate.
So, Zach.
Yes, Seth.
What have you normally been playing lately?
What have I normally been playing lately?
Yeah.
That's one way to word it.
Just trying to be punny.
Haven't been abnormally playing anything.
Is that when you play it upside down?
Yeah, it's like I flip the controller upside down and
you play with your feet.
Gross.
It's like what is it? The tricky style and
tricky style, yeah. In
like 1080.
Yeah. Or Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I was thinking.
Oh yeah, I was thinking 1080, the obscure snowboarding game for the N64.
I have not been playing 1080.
It's unfortunate. You should.
Which is unfortunate. I actually should pick. I'm probably going to pick up a copy of 1080 now because I want to play it. Anyway, I have been recently playing another bootleg game because that's what I do best. I've been playing Pokemon Yellow, produced and published by Shenzhen Nanjing Technology Company, likely around 2004. There's no specific date. It's just widely assumed it came out around that time because it's based on previous versions of these D-made Pokemon games for the Famicom that were out at the same time. So some of the code I think is shared between another game, and that game came out around 2004. So this game probably came out sometime in 2004. Anyway, this is a demake of sorts of Pokemon Yellow for the Game Boy 2, the Nintendo Famicom, produced and created by Shenzhen Nanjing, which I've talked about briefly when I talked about playing the Warcraft bootleg RPG that Shenzhen Nanjing produced. While it's called Pokemon Yellow, it's actually kind of a combination of Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Pokemon Yellow. So it has some design elements and gameplay mechanics that are taken from Fire Red, but it also kind of incorporates the layout and stuff of Pokemon Yellow and some of the graphics from Pokemon Yellow. I actually will say, despite the fact I can't read any Chinese, I'm actually really enjoying myself with it. The game plays really smoothly for a bootleg RPG game. The controls are what you'd expect from a Pokemon game. I mean, you're not doing a lot of platforming and stuff. You're moving up and down, but the different things that you can do in the game are pretty much identical to what you'd expect from Pokemon. So the attack is in the same place as it is on the Game Boy, so I know where to press to get the attack for your Pokemon. And you capture Pokemon with Pokeballs and you walk around, you grind, and it seems like the balance of the RPG system is a little better than what I played in that Warcraft game, where it feels like the fights are a bit more fair and they don't take forever to play through. So it feels like they actually put some effort into making this game feel accurate to the Pokemon games, which I think is commendable. There is actually an English version of the game the game was translated by fans and actually slightly improved by fans. They fixed some of the various glitches and stuff that you can encounter. But I have been playing an original cartridge that I got recently from a seller that I met online, and he provided me with a complete in-box copy of the Shenzhen Nanjing release from around 2004-ish. And it is of dubious quality when it comes to the quality of the plastic. The cartridge feels like I could shatter it if I squeezed a little too hard. But, such as games of that time period from China, so it's kind of what you'd come to expect, but it does work perfectly.
I mean, anything could shatter if you squeeze it hard enough.
That's true. I just mean, compared to a legitimate Famicom game, or even a bootleg Famicom game from the 90s, there's a definite quality dip in cartridge plastics. It almost feels like what you'd get from a 3D printer, but cheaper than that. It's just this off feeling plastic. So they must have switched whatever they were using for plastics probably to something that was more affordable, and that's why it ultimately feels cheaper.
But it's completely in Chinese.
Yes, this version is completely in Chinese.
How far have you gotten in the game?
Just about to the first gym, so I'm still just trying to level up my Pokemon so I can go through the first gym.
I guess if you know the story, you really don't need to be able to read.
Yeah, and like you can kind of piece it together. I mean, like the opening of the game, you wander around your town, and when you try to leave, the professor comes up and he says something to you, which you can infer to be like, "Don't leave, I need to show you something."
Right,
And he takes you to the Pokemon lab and he gives you a Pokemon. It's Pikachu because it's Pokemon Yellow. And then this other guy who's there, which you can infer is your rival, will be like, "I'm going to challenge you now," and you go into the fight and you beat him, and then he gets grumpy. What is funny is that because the game has some glitches and stuff in it, after you beat your rival for the first time, in the original game, he like walks out and there's like dramatic music that plays while he's walking out. In this game, he just vanishes. So he's standing there, and then 1 second later, he's just gone. So it's like
maybe he could teleport. It's like, my rival's been Nightcrawler this entire time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, another thing is because these games, like you said, because you can kind of figure out Pokemon, the story you can just kind of piece together and kind of figure out what you're doing without really translation. I have pulled out my phone a couple of times just to double check menu items. So like when I stopped playing the game, I wanted to double check to see if there was a save function, because I did notice when I was looking at the cart, there is a cell battery inside of it. So I was like, oh, I think you can save. And sure enough, there is a save option that you can click and it will say saving game. And then if I turn the system off and turned it back on, put the cartridge back in, my save retained. So
it
does actually allow you to save the game wherever
you were definitely setting that up for a failure, like, and then it was gone.
Yes, no, actually all of the games that I received, because I got a couple of games from this seller, all of the games I've received had save functions in them, which is also unique for bootlegs because adding that battery is extra money basically. Right. A lot of times bootleg games would come up with ways to avoid adding the battery, such as adding like a level select or something, but this has a battery function, which is useful. I don't know how good the battery is. It was in there when I bought the game, but it does seem to be held in using a standard battery cell holder, so I think I can just like pop it out and replace it with any cell battery that fits. I think they're just the quarter sized, as R235 or something like that. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. What about you, Seth? What have you been playing?
Well, I have been playing a game that I think was on our Byway Pass that I ended up getting for free. Well, I didn't get it for free. I got it through Humble Bundle because that's a service. So I paid them an amount and they gave me a bunch of games. One of the games they gave me was Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
Hey!
It was developed by Woodosity and Fairplay Labs and published by Game Mill Entertainment and was released October 5th of 2021, which was just a few months ago at the time of this recording. Well, I guess more than a few now. Several months ago. It's I'm going to say kind of a meh game. So it's a follow-up to the Nickelodeon Super Brawl game, which came out and was more of a Street Fighter style game with a one-on-one combat. And Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, as evident by its name Brawl, is a Super Smash Bros. Style combat.
That does make sense.
Yeah, so I played it with my Xbox controller. It's kind of like I was playing it. I thought it was fun, but like not like a ton of fun. Like it was entertaining in the moment. The issues I had was more so when you're playing a brawl type Super Smash Bros. Game, you're going to just kind of think about comparing it to Best in Class. And it's very difficult to play a game that is not Super Smash Brothers and be like, this is as much fun as I'm having while playing Super Smash Brothers. Because let's be honest, like if I wanted to play a brawl game, I'm just going to go play Super Smash Brothers. I'm not going to play the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, regardless of what characters they put into it. The game overall is just not as tight as a Super Smash Brothers game. However, they do have one of my favorite characters in it that is from a show that I never really watched, and that's the Powdered Toast Man from the Ren and Stimpy show. So I never really watched Ren and Stimpy. I don't particularly even really like the Ren and Stimpy show, but I really like Powdered Toast Man because he has like a big toast on his face. Kind of looks like if he was the mascot for like that cereal French Toast Crunch. So then I feel like I'm playing like a cereal mascot brawler game, and that may be a game that
that would be so good.
That would be something I would actually really enjoy. Like
Yeah, I wish that was a
like
thing. Oh, that
Captain Crunch fighting like Trix the Rabbit fighting. Oh man, we gotta hit up General Mills. See if
then you
we
get
can...
Chex Quest in it. Like you get like the Chex Warrior.
The Chex Warrior. You can do Trix Rabbit. You can have Powdered Toast Man representing the French Toast Crunch guy, which is I don't even. Anyway, that's none of those people are in this game, but you do get like the SpongeBob SquarePants people, Hey Arnold people, Rugrats. You get to play as Reptar, which is always fun. Nigel Thornberry from the Wild Thornberries, Garfield from Garfield, and then they have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I never really associated with Nickelodeon, but I guess
They are Nickelodeon property. One of the more recent shows aired on Nickelodeon.
Right. But I think it was an acquisition after I was a child.
Oh yeah, I mean Garfield was an acquisition like within the last like 10 years, I think.
Yeah, for me Garfield is a Sunday newspaper comic, right? So for me I don't particularly care where he lives in the Aether. I like Garfield. I just like if he's owned by Nickelodeon or WB or whatever, fine. Like I don't particularly care. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were decidedly Warner Brothers property. Is Nickelodeon Warner Brothers?
No, Nickelodeon's Viacom.
But they were Warner Brothers, weren't they? Wasn't the original first movie Warner Brothers?
Let me look it up. No, New Line, but New Line is a subsidiary of Warner. So
yeah, it was Warner Brothers. So like for me growing up, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like Warner Brothers. So now being Nickelodeon is just very strange because Nickelodeon is owned ultimately by Viacom. Long story short, it's just weird for me to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in a Nickelodeon game.
No, I agree. It is kind of weird because, I mean, even though I grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at a different time than Seth, I don't associate them with Nickelodeon either. It is just very weird having like quintessential Nickelodeon characters like Helga Pataki and like Invader Zim in something with like Leonardo.
And in Nickelodeon All-Star, there's only 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you like Donatello or Raphael, too bad. Don't ask me. I'm not in charge of licensing the appropriate characters here. But anyway, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. If you really love Nickelodeon properties and you want to play as like real monsters like Oblina, I don't even think you could play as Ickis, but Oblina, and you could fight Reptar. Like that's pretty much it. But don't expect like Tommy Pickles.
So today we are talking about today's topic, which is we're going to kind of start to get into the Disney Afternoon games. So we'll first talk about what the Disney Afternoon was for those of you who are actually like my age, who didn't really grow up with the Disney Afternoon and aren't Seth's age who did. But we're also going to talk specifically about our experience playing one of the games in the Disney Afternoon series, I guess you could say, which was TaleSpin. So Seth, do you have any memories specific of the various Disney Afternoon games? They were a lot. They were all based on Disney Afternoon properties.
Yeah, so I remember the DuckTales games, and I remember the TaleSpin games. TaleSpin, obviously, because we owned it, and DuckTales, I'm sure I played it. I have memories of playing it. And the thing that I remember from the DuckTale games was Scrooge being able to pogo stick on his cane. And then I've had countless memories of the TaleSpin game. TaleSpin has the honor of being one of the few games that I beat as a child. And I was really excited about being able to beat TaleSpin.
It's a good feeling to beat a game.
Yeah, I don't do it often.
Even if it's TaleSpin.
Hey, it's still a tough game.
My memories are primarily TaleSpin. I played DuckTales and like Rescue Rangers later, but I remember playing TaleSpin as a kid because we had the Sega Genesis version, which was great. And someday we'll probably do more of a focus on games like DuckTales and such. Not in today's episode because that's not how Classic Gaming Brothers roll. We're going to focus on the obscure one, which is specifically TaleSpin for the Sega Genesis.
It's not obscure,
but it's not like it hasn't been re-released. Whereas like the
because
NES
it was because it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, you only need to release it once.
You don't need to re-release a masterpiece.
But I guess the $1 million question is, before we talk about the games, is what was the Disney Afternoon?
Right. Now, since the dawn of television, kids have loved watching cartoons, and Disney, being primarily a company that made content for children, capitalized this in the 1980s. In 1989, towards the end of the year, 2 Disney-branded cartoons were offered in syndication, DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. And in 1990, both shows, DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, began to air in a programming block that was called the Disney Afternoon, along with Gummy Bears, TaleSpin, and later Darkwing Duck. So this is when, Disney would take over a block in a programming segment, market it as a continuous entertainment package for children, and hope that they can grab that child for that entire time. And then you can also sell to advertisers saying like, hey, we've got kids' attentions for 2 hours. Now, the animation block consisted of 2 hours on weekdays in the late afternoon, early evening on various channels, and later on both Disney Channel and Toon Disney. The block aired from 1990 to 1997 under the name The Disney Afternoon, and then they officially closed the block in 1999. Beyond the shows previously mentioned, other titles that aired would go on to be Goof Troop, Aladdin, Bonkers, Gargoyles, Timon and Pumbaa, The Snookums, Quack Pack, and Mighty Ducks.
I always got really frustrated with Mighty Ducks because I liked the cartoon a lot, and then sometimes the Disney Channel would be like, oh, we're going to air Mighty Ducks the movie, and I was like, oh man, I love that cartoon. And then the movie would air, and it's the live action movie about a hockey team. And it's not the cartoon where it's ducks fighting crime, but they're also on a hockey team.
Yeah, they were a hockey duck team.
They're a hockey duck team. They
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the movie besides the name. They were the Mighty Ducks.
They really like ducks, though. Like, Disney likes ducks. You have the Mighty Ducks, you have Darkwing Duck, and you have, like, the DuckTales. So, like...
Yeah, and Quack Pack.
And are they all the same duck universe?
So I know Darkwing Duck and DuckTales are because Launchpad is in both.
Right.
Because Launchpad, who is the pilot in DuckTales, becomes like the personal assistant to Darkwing Duck.
No, he's just his everyman. He's his Alfred.
Now, the shows in the original block, as they were part of syndication, also aired on other networks, as that's kind of the point of syndication. And these would be networks outside of what became Disney Channel and Toon Disney. So they were airing on various Fox affiliates and other channels. However, they were soon removed from Fox affiliates due to the fact that Disney decided to move the block to their own stations. Because Disney had purchased a television station that would become the Disney Channel, and when Disney decided to move the block to their own station, they broke a contract that they had signed when they entered syndication. Barry Diller, the COO of Fox at the time, not only decided that he would pull DuckTales from Fox and Fox-owned stations, he also lobbied other networks to do the same. Fox would later create Fox Kids, which was their own animation block, which, funny enough, would then become owned by Disney because Disney purchased Fox Family Worldwide in 2001, which contained all the assets of Fox Kids.
The recent 21st Century purchase of Fox, which Disney did a few years ago, was just the culmination of Disney buying parts of Fox as things went along. They've been
grabbing at Fox since forever.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, however, you move something into syndication to sell it, right? So Disney was a content creation house. So they would create things such as movies and shows, and they had an animation studio, like they had a powerhouse of content creation. However, until they had the Disney Channel, which was newer in the 90s, they had to schlep their content in syndication to other stations, which is where you would watch Disney animation on Fox channels. And that's how I remember my early childhood. And then I remembered the Disney Channel becoming a thing, and then a lot of the content moving over to the Disney Channel. And as Disney would want, right? If they have their own channel, they need to fill it with stuff. So they're just going to pull everything out of syndication.
Yeah. And then they eventually moved some stuff to Toon Disney, which was on extended cable, which we didn't have. In 1996, with the rise of other various children-centric television stations from cable networks, such as Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, Disney and their television arm, Buena Vista, would establish a partnership with Kellogg's, everyone's favorite strange cereal company. The partnership was internally known as the Disney-Kellogg Alliance, which is so boring sounding. By 1997, the block had dropped the name the Disney Afternoon and also became a half hour shorter. In 1999, the block officially ended as it was replaced with the new 2-hour Disney's 1-2 block, which had other cartoons that Disney was now showing, but outside of the ones that we know of as the Disney Afternoon.
Now, along with this animation block, various video games were released based on the titles that were shown, which include DuckTales in 1989, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Ranger in 1990, TaleSpin in 1991 and 92 for the Sega version, and Darkwing Duck in 1992, and so on. The games that were released on various Nintendo systems were all primarily developed by Capcom, with Sega titles often being worked by Sega in-house. Well, Zach and I were a Sega household, as everyone who listens to this podcast knows, and if you didn't know, now you know. We're going to talk about the TaleSpin for the Sega Genesis, because we don't move in any particular order. You know, I would say if we were not an abnormal podcast, we would start with DuckTales, since that was first, but no. You'll have to wait weeks for DuckTales to come out.
We're going to talk about the one that no one remembers.
And nobody cares about.
Yeah, so TaleSpin was a 1992 Sega Genesis game developed by Sega and a division of theirs known as Interactive Designs. The game was based on the show of the same name. Now, the show TaleSpin was based on the movie The Jungle Book, but in a very loose sort of way. Basically, TaleSpin is the question, what if the characters from The Jungle Book were also bush pilots in a diesel punk universe where humans don't exist?
We don't know that humans don't exist.
No, they don't, because the cities are all animals.
We don't know if humans ever existed.
Oh yeah, the animals took over. Well, the moment animals start learning how to fly airplanes, I think humans were doomed. The show is set in what appears to be an alternate 1930s during the waning days of the Great Depression in the fictional city of Cape Suzette, based on San Francisco. The story centered around the pilot Baloo, a bear who started an air cargo freight business called Baloo's Air Service. Baloo is bad with money and defaults on all his bills. Due to being bad at money and in bad favor with the bank, which the bank is run by the tiger Shere Khan, Baloo's business is taken over by another bear named Rebecca Cunningham. And Baloo kind of falls into like a depression, and you first meet him at a bar. This is a children's show.
He's like, let me have a couple more of these brewskis, kid, and then we can get this plate on the road.
The new business, Hire for Hire, the first hire spelled Higher for HIRE, often finds Baloo shuttling cargo to various locations with the help of a young grizzly bear named Kit Cloudkicker. Along the way, they must avoid conflict with the air pirate Don Carnage. And also they have to deal with the fact that like Shere Khan, who owns the bank, is also just a bad guy. Like he owns the bank, but he's also evil.
Yeah, well, he's Shere Khan, so he's an evil bank. And most bank people are evil.
But he's like especially evil. Like I'm pretty sure he works with Don Carnage sometimes.
What's the relationship between Kit Cloudkicker and Baloo?
I rewatched the first episode of TaleSpin recently. Kit stole stuff from Don Carnage, showed up at the bar that Baloo was at, and was like, that guy's trying to kidnap me, and pointed at like some random pirates. And Baloo's like, that's not good. And then Kit just like goes on Baloo's airplane now.
Oh, so they're just like friends adjacent because they both don't like John Carnage.
Yeah, because Kit's a thief and Baloo doesn't care.
And Don Carnage is a wolf.
Yes, yeah, he's a wolf. I thought he was a fox, but he is a wolf.
He's like a foxish wolf.
Yeah, he's a combination.
And I also just like that they all wear clothes as well.
Yeah, they all wear clothes. Like Shere Khan wears a suit,
and Baloo does he just wear like a jacket?
He doesn't wear pants. Everyone else wears pants.
Everyone else wears pants. I wonder how much smuggling was going on.
Oh, so much.
Now, the game TaleSpin primarily focuses on Baloo and Kit. Throughout the game, you must travel around and collect various pieces of lost cargo, as well as fight various air pirates in Don Carnage's gang. And the game is split into two forms of gameplay. The main game consists of you playing as either Baloo or Kit and walking around the level finding the cargo. Between the stages, you take flight in Baloo's Sea Duck, and you fight Don Carnage's pirates as they attack. These portions of the game are played like arcade shooters, similar to Gradius. If you play as Baloo, you can control the Sea Duck directly. If you play as Kit, you surf behind the plane. So I recently played TaleSpin. The game can be split into two players, where one person plays as Baloo and one person plays as Kit. And it has a fall mechanic, so whoever is in the lead will auto jump to wherever if they fall behind. And it's also time-based. Essentially, Rebecca has to fill the order of X number of crates within so many days. So you're incentivized to progress through the levels as fast as you can. And then when you go to the shoot 'em up levels where you fly as the plane, if you take enough damage, you'll either crash, but you may also lose cargo. Cargo may fall out and you have to recapture it. There are also bosses after every stage. So
they're in the bank, aren't they?
Yeah, they are in the bank. They're all in the bank. Sometimes the bank is destroyed.
Yeah, you go to the bank and the bosses are just there, and there's like tellers in the background that are just like filing.
I just remember the first guy, he's like this like beagle, and he's got a magnet. He's got this gigantic magnet that shoots like this like metal thing out and like latches you to bring you forward to him.
Yeah.
And there's also like a rift, just like a gigantic hole in the middle of the bank where the bosses leap out of. And that's how they... Oh, because maybe they're robbing the bank.
They might be robbing the bank.
They're probably robbing the bank. Now, thinking about this game, after have played it for 20 some odd years, they were probably robbing the bank. That's where the hole came from. I always just assumed that there was just a gigantic hole in the bank. And the second boss was like this green, really abnormally thin guy who shot these little ball bearings, and they were really annoying and bounced everywhere, and I hated it.
He looks like a weasel. He might be a weasel.
A green weasel. So when you play as Baloo, you fly the Sea Duck directly. That's fine. And you can shoot, which is great. When you play as Kit, you fly behind the Sea Duck and you vaguely control the plane.
Yeah. It's like, I think your character will move first and then the plane will like list lazily in the direction you moved.
It's so tough. It's easier to play the platform sections with Kit. Kit's just an all-around better platform character. You get you have a slingshot for a weapon, but it makes the flight section so much harder. And since the flight section is so important to progressing in the game, if you're playing by yourself, you just like have to play as Baloo, who has like a stupid paddle ball for his weapon.
Yeah. He's also, I think, like slower and stuff. In regards to the gameplay of the actual like platforming sections, there are slight differences. Kit is smaller and faster, and as Seth alluded to, he fires a slingshot, which is long range. Baloo is slower, taller, so he has a higher hitbox, and uses a paddle ball, which is not long range, so you have to get close to people to fight. Pretty much all of the enemies have some form of projectile or will just immediately attack you the closer you get. So playing Baloo is just like a disaster. In regards to, and normally Seth will do the numbers, and he's going to talk about numbers for some of the other games, but in terms of reception and numbers of TaleSpin, I really looked, but I had trouble finding them. But what I did see was that the game had a pretty moderate review of a 75 out of 100 in Computer and Video Games Magazine, which was a British magazine. And it also described the game and, as I quote, an attractive package, which sadly lacks substance. There was an NES version of TaleSpin released in 1991, and there was another version released for the Game Boy that was nearly identical to the NES version. These are entirely different versions of TaleSpin. These were made by Capcom and are set entirely as scrolling shooters where you control the Sea Duck and fight pirates. And this version was included in the Disney Afternoon Collection in 2017, which was a collection of Disney Afternoon games for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
To kind of structure the game before we wrap up with the numbers in regards to the Disney Afternoon Collection, there's 8 platforming levels that are done up into different locations in the world, starting with a jungle. It's really the Jungle Book. Jungle is where you start off in, and then you go to the Lost City, which I believe is another like Disney location, but there's like gangsters that are there. Then you go to Italy, Greece, Egypt, India, and then New York and San Francisco. Then, after you beat San Francisco, it is all shoot 'em up levels until the end of the game. So you go San Francisco as a shoot 'em up level, then you go into Pirate's Cave, which is a shoot 'em up level, and then you have your encounter with Iron Claw, which is a shoot 'em up level. If you're playing as Kit and you got the stupid computer as Baloo, it's going to be rough go at the end. And then at the end, if you successfully get everything, it's like an animated pixel of Baloo and Kit standing at the edge of the dock of Hire for Hire, and there's just balloons that go up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks very silly.
They don't have any expression on their face. They're just the deadpan staring at the camera while they like breathe, and the balloons like go up across the rest of the sky. So that's a little bit more on TaleSpin. Other games outside of TaleSpin from the Disney Afternoon Collection did all really well. DuckTales was a commercial success for Capcom, selling 1.67 million copies for the NES and 1.43 million for the Game Boy version. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES sold 1.2 million copies and was also a commercial success for Capcom. A remake of DuckTales was released in 2013, delisted on digital storefronts on 2019, and relisted in 2020. The remake plays similarly to the original game, but has updated hand-drawn sprites and 3D levels. However, from what I know of it, if you just play the original, it's probably going to be just a very similar experience.
Personally, I think the original's better, but
that's what I've also heard, is the original's better. DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, the NES TaleSpin, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales 2, and Rescue Rangers 2 were all included in the 2017 Disney Afternoon Collection as well, which is available on Steam.
And it's a great collection. If you don't really feel like finding copies of these games IRL and want to spend a little money to buy an official version of the games, it's a great option to have. I think it is available on Switch. It might be. The Disney Afternoon Collection, the price alone is probably good enough for DuckTales and DuckTales 2. Legitimate copies, NES copies of DuckTales and DuckTales 2 can range. DuckTales is a bit more of a common game, but the price has gone up, as all classic games have. DuckTales 2 will set you back like $500 to $600 on a good day. So it is a sought after and very rare game because it was very low quantities when it was released. But that's a story for another time, because as I said, Seth and I will someday probably will do an episode focused on DuckTales, maybe do an episode on Rescue Rangers. Anyway, that will do it for our Disney Afternoon Collection -TaleSpin segment. We're going to get into talking about our buy, wait, passes. Seth, since I went first, I'm going to go first again. This game...
I gotta start paying attention.
This game, Seth, is a game that is kind of related to the games we've talked about today, because it's being developed by a company who we've referred to a couple of times now. That company is Capcom. This is a game where it is time to throw hands, drop gems, cast spells, and crush robots. This is a game that features 10 iconic games with online play for all 10 games, as well as additional features including a gallery of official art, a music player with soundtracks, and much, much more. Are you interested?
Sure.
This is the Capcom Fighting Collection.
Cool. Let's look it up real quick, and we'll be right back. Welcome back.
We're back.
So the Capcom Fighting Collection, which is coming out June 24th of 2022, is going to be on Steam, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. It's probably going to be also on the newer systems as well, I assume. It's coming along with Darkstalkers, Night Warriors, Vampire Savior, Vampire Hunter 2, Vampire Survivor 2, Red Earth, Cyberbots, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2, and Super Gem Fighter Minimix. And they are having some new features to enhance the experience, some useful settings to make it easy for new and returning players to join the fun. These are all arcade versions of the games where you can... but you can also battle online with them now or offline. But these are all arcade versions of their games that they are bringing together in a collection. So it's not these games that were ported getting bundled together. It's the arcade versions being bundled together officially, which I think is actually pretty cool. I like arcade fighting games. I don't know if I like them enough to get 10 of them. But I know my wife really enjoys Darkstalkers. I'm going to put this down as a wait. We'll see what's going on in June. So I'm going to put that down as a wait. I'll keep an eye out for it. Cyberbots looks like a pretty cool game to play. I do like one-on-one fighting games. Like I said though, I just don't know if I like 10 one-on-one fighting games. So yeah, they'll put it down as a wait. Zach, for you, I have a game that's going to be easy at first and then get harder as we move along.
Okay.
It's one where you're going to need to think inside the box and really use your brain to kind of solve problems as you explore a deep system of puzzles, as it were.
Okay.
The game is Patrick's Parabox, which is being developed by Patrick Traynor and due out. It just came out March 29th, 2022.
Oh, okay. So we'll be right back as I take a look at this game. And we're back. So Patrick's Parabox is a game, as Seth mentioned, being developed and published by Patrick Traynor and just came out. And it looks very, very neat. I like the art style a lot. When I first saw it, I actually got kind of a flashback to Thomas Was Alone, which is a platformer, but this is not a platformer. This is a puzzle game. And it's actually a Sokoban game. And it's kind of a unique twist on a Sokoban game. In Sokoban games, you push blocks to solve puzzles, and usually you can only push them in 4 directions. So if you can push them up, down, left, or right, you can't really push them diagonally. In this game, you'll have like smaller puzzles inside of the puzzles. So you'll push a block like you would in Sokoban up against a wall, and then when you push on it again, you'll enter that block into a smaller Sokoban puzzle, and it keeps going down. And I like that. And I guess that's why it is a recursive puzzle game, because it is Sokoban puzzles all the way down. I'm really into that. I'm going to put it down as a wait tentative buy, because I do see there's a demo available, so I'm going to download the demo and give it a shot, and we'll try it out from there. But I do like Sokoban games a lot. I'm a big fan of Chip's Challenge, so I will put this game down as a wait tentative buy.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us on this wonderful journey through our childhood and talking about TaleSpin, probably one of the greatest games that we played on the Sega Genesis. So if you are interested in contacting the Classic Gaming Brothers, you can always send us an email at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. You can also head on to our website and fill out a contact form. You can also follow us on our social medias. Our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Twitch are all at Classic Gaming Brothers. And our Twitter is CG Brothers Pod, where we talk about releasing all of our episodes, which come out on Sunday. Give us a follow, a rating, and likes all on all those things. And go ahead and give us a rating on our iTunes platform or in our wherever your agent that you're listening to the podcast. We always appreciate that. And that's going to be everything. Did I miss anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Zach.
And I've been Seth.
We've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's
all we ain't. TaleSpin. Oh, yo. TaleSpin.
TaleSpin.